Burt Reynolds and Jerry Reed were big stars back in their day. One changed movies in Hollywood with his easy charm. The other changed American country music with his natural feel and tough spirit. On screen, their friendship looked easy and happy, full of laughs and the same background. But away from the cameras, their friendship was a lot more tricky. And before Burt Reynolds died, he finally shared what he had kept secret for years about Jerry Reed. And nobody saw it coming. The pair everyone loved. For years, fans thought they knew the friendship between Burt Reynolds and Jerry Reed. On screen, they seemed like they could never be apart. Two guys totally in tune, sharing jokes and trust like it was the easiest thing. The spark between them felt real because it really was. But behind all the laughs and big-ticket sales, Reynolds saw something about Reed that the public never heard. Something that did not match the fun, easygoing picture. Many years later, when Reynolds finally talked about it, his words made their famous team look very different. But long before fans loved them as a team that could not be split, their friendship started quietly, almost by chance. Reed first met Reynolds in the middle of the 1970s, acting with him in WW and the Dixie Dancekings and later Gator. These movies were not huge hits like what came after, but they let Reynolds see something others missed. Reed was not trained like most actors. He did not act with fancy polish. What he had was perfect timing, natural feel, and a relaxed way that cameras do not usually let new people get away with. Reynolds noticed it. By then, Reynolds was already a big power in Hollywood. After Deliverance, he became a huge box office star very fast. His mix of being tough and funny made him someone studios wanted. Movies like The Longest Yard made his popularity even stronger. By the middle 1970s, he was not just acting in films, he was helping make them. That power mattered a lot when they were making Smokey and the Bandit. Reynolds was not only the star, he was also the director. And when they needed to pick someone for the part of Cletus, also called Snowman or Snow, the truck driver who balanced the bandit's cool style. The studio had other actors in mind. Jerry Reed was not their first choice. They saw him as a singer first, just a fun idea for casting with not much movie experience. But Reynolds said no. He pushed hard for Reed because he already knew what Reed could do. Reed was from the South. He got the rhythm, the jokes, the quiet moments, and the Southern way the movie needed. Reynolds knew you could not fake that real feeling. And from working together before, he trusted Reed's natural skills all the way. At that time, Reed did not need movies to prove himself. He was already a Grammy-winning country singer, loved for writing songs and playing guitar. Songs like Guitar Man and Amos Moses made him known in music long before people saw him in a cowboy hat in movies. What he did not have yet was one big movie part that defined him. Smokey and the Bandit changed that. Reed did not just act as Snowman, he also helped make the movie's sound. He wrote and sang Eastbound and Down, a song that did not just play in the movie but became part of it. The song caught the fast speed, the fun, and the rebel feeling of the story so well that it felt like the movie's voice telling the tale. For lots of people, just hearing the first note still makes them think of truck stops, CB radios, and wide-open roads. On screen, the way the two guys worked together was perfect. Reynolds acted as the smooth bad guy with big movie star confidence. Reed matched him with real, down-to-earth humor, straight talk, and perfect funny timing. They came back together for Hooper, where Reed fit right into Reynolds' world without any trouble. But it did not stop there. They did Smokey and the Bandit I, and later they both showed up in the big crazy group movie The Cannonball Run. When Reynolds decided not to do Smokey and the Bandit Part 3, Reed took the main bandit role himself. That was something no one could imagine just a few years before. That one choice showed how much Reed had grown, and how much his movie self was now linked to the series Reynolds helped create. Away from the screen, their friendship was as real as people thought. They came from similar places, had the same kind of jokes, and really understood what being Southern meant, without making it fake. Reynolds often talked with respect about Reed's skills, especially how he switched between music and movies without losing respect in either one. Yet even in their best years, Reynolds quietly saw things about Reed that others missed. Behind the jokes and easy way he acted, there were signs of hard times that never showed up in talks or news stories. Reynolds later said what he saw when the cameras were off stayed with him, and some of it bothered him more than he showed back then. Because while fans saw a perfect team, the two guys had a lot more going on inside than anyone knew. What Burt Reynolds kept hidden from everyone. For most of his work life, Burt Reynolds showed a picture of being calm and in charge. A guy who looked at home in his own body and moved through Hollywood without any obvious problems. But behind that strong outside look was a private life full of body pain, feeling alone, and problems that built up slowly before people saw anything. Reynolds got a lot of his fame from seeming tough and real. Part of that came from never using stunt doubles much, a choice that made people respect him on set but hurt his body in ways that never got better. Early in his acting days, Reynolds pushed his body way past what most big stars would do, always doing his own falls, fights, and dangerous stuff when he could. That choice made his acting look real, but it also gave him hurts that stayed with him for years. The pain was not from one thing or one movie. It built up over time with bad knees, backaches, and other body limits that became part of every day, even when he still looked strong on screen. One really bad moment happened while filming City Heat, when something went wrong and hurt his jaw very badly. It needed a lot of doctor help and a long, hard time to get better, and it got him started on pain pills that stayed in his life much longer than planned. What people did not see was how that hurt changed how he dealt with pain and being in control. As constant body hurt became normal, taking medicine made the line between help and too much use blurry. This made his health harder at a time when his movie work was also starting to slow down from being the top star. As he got fewer parts and ticket sales dropped, the body problems he tried to ignore became too big to avoid. This left him moving less and in constant pain that changed his older years more than most fans knew. Along with body problems came feeling sad inside that Reynolds did not talk about much when he was at his best. This was because his image was all about charm, laughs, and being sure of himself, not showing weak spots. In private, he fought depression that got worse as hurts grew and chances got smaller. He later said he felt very alone even when people still knew him everywhere. He talked about a loneliness that had nothing to do with being famous and everything to do with regrets he never fixed and losing the steady life he once had. That unsteady feeling also hit his money, where his outside image hid a much harder truth. Even though he made millions in his big years, the way he spent money, some bad choices in business, and his personal life slowly took away the safety those millions should have given. Reynolds put a lot of money into things that did not make more money, lived a very fancy life thinking the money would keep coming, and did not see how fast costs could take over even a big amount. When his movie success slowed, things got worse. In the early 1990s, big debts and lawyer costs pushed him close to going broke. A big part of those money problems came from his marriage to Lonnie Anderson, a relationship that got lots of news attention from the start and turned very hard and angry behind the scenes. Their marriage lasted from 1988 to 1994 and ended in a very angry and costly split that took his money through lawyer bills and payments. This added more sad feelings to an already tough time. As his money got worse, Reynolds had to sell his personal things and special items from his career, not as a fun choice, but because he really needed the money to pay debts he could not handle anymore. In love, Reynolds' life had the same pattern of strong feelings followed by loss, with famous relationships that usually ended badly and left deep hurts inside. He was connected to several well-known women over the years, but one stayed very important in his thoughts long after it ended. His time with Sally Field, who he later called the love of his life. Their relationship happened during his biggest fame and ended in the early 1980s. Reynolds later said the split hurt him more than he let people see back then, and it became a big regret that came back many times as other parts of his life fell apart. As time went on, the difference between what people thought of Burt Reynolds and where he really was in Hollywood got bigger. After ruling the box office in the 1970s and early 1980s, the push that carried his career started to slow in ways he could not fix easily. Several movies that did not do well made studios doubt him as the main star. Stories about fights on set and not going along with what studios wanted followed him into meetings where big choices happened. This slowly changed how bosses saw him. The movie world that once made films just for him became careful, then far away, leaving Reynolds to face a drop in his work he never expected and never talked about openly then. Reynolds kept working all the time, but the parts did not have the same big meaning as his old hits, and the strong feeling he used to bring to talks no longer gave him power. Hollywood moved forward, and Reynolds, who did so well in a world that loved his ideas, now had to deal with one that did not value them the same way. That is why everyone was shocked when he showed up in Boogie Nights. He played a bossy and angry movie director, and gave an acting job that took away a lot of the charm people knew him for and put in something real and harder to watch. That part got him an Oscar nomination, and for a short time made people see him as a serious actor again, opening doors that looked shut not long before. But even when the movie brought new good talk about his work, Reynolds later pulled away from it, saying the movie was too dark and he did not like its feeling. This showed his hard time trying to match his famous image with parts that pushed against it. At the same time, the body and health problems from earlier years kept affecting his everyday, especially depending on pain pills. This made his health worse and added to the weakness people could see more as he got older. His health got even worse when heart trouble started, leading to a big five-way heart surgery in 2010, an operation that showed how much his body had been through long after movies stopped showing his toughness. Even with all these hard things, Reynolds never completely stopped working, still taking parts and showing up in public even as his health went down. In private, he talked more openly about feeling alone and regret, especially as friends drifted away and life slowed. He thought about the price of choices from long ago, including saying no to parts that later became huge famous movies in America. He said no to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Terms of Endearment, choices he said stayed heavy on him as reminders of chances that could have changed his later work. In his book about his life, Reynolds showed himself without the big confident show he once had, talking about a life that, even with huge fame and wins, left him feeling not full and heavy with mistakes he could not fix. And while Reynolds' hard times happened mostly away from view, His closest partner during his best years was going through his own slow, hard fall. One that took a different road but ended with just as heavy results. The sad, hard times that came next, Jerry Reed. Long before people knew Jerry Reed as the funny snowman or the guy behind some of the best-known country guitar sounds of the 1900s, his life was already full of unsteady times, being poor and hard living that never really let go. Reed was born into a poor family that grew cotton in the country part of Georgia, where money worries never stopped and feeling safe inside was never sure. Those early days made him grow up fast in places with little safety or knowing what would happen next. As a kid, Reed lived in foster homes after his family got more and more unstable, moving between places that gave him a roof, but almost never a real home feeling. Music became his safe place. He started playing guitar when he was young and right away showed a special natural skill. He learned beats and tunes by feeling them, not by school lessons. And by his teen years, he was already playing in bars and clubs for grown-ups. Reed started making records in the 1950s, going into a business that gave chances but had no time for singers who did not fit the popular style exactly. His first deals with record companies did not bring big success, not because he lacked skill, but because his music did not match what was hot then. During that time, Reed made money with small jobs while still writing, playing, and recording. That never give up finally worked when Elvis Presley recorded Reed's song Guitar Man, something that changed Reed's place in music very fast. Presley's use of the song did not just make the song good. It made Reed good as a writer and player, opening doors that were shut before. From then on, Reed's work grew stronger, leading to hits on the charts, Grammy wins, and more people knowing him. But even as he got more respect in work, old habits from early life stayed strong, especially smoking a lot of cigarettes. Reed smoked heavily most of his grown-up life. And while people did not talk much about it in public, it slowly hurt his health over time, adding to body limits that got harder to push away. His happy way and easy jokes made fans think he had no problems from his work pressure. But people close to him knew the energy he showed often hid ongoing fights with habits and keeping himself in check. As years went by, the results of those habits started showing more. Ready to go. T emphysema and other bad health problems that slowly took away his energy and breathing strength. Doing shows which used to be easy for him became hard work, then very tiring and finally too much to handle. But Reed did not want to stop completely, still making records and doing shows as long as his body let him. His getting worse was not fast. It was slow and steady, with shorter shows, fewer times on stage, and long times away from the lights. During this, Reed put his focus on writing and recording when he could, set on staying creative even as his body got weaker. His voice, once easy and strong, became hard to use, and playing guitar for long times got smaller. As Jerry Reed became known more than just in music and into movies, new pressures came along. Because while fans loved him on screen, the movie business rarely saw him outside a small kind of part. In movies like Smokey and the Bandit and Hooper, Reed became known as the funny Southern helper, a character full of jokes, kindness, and natural feel instead of big changes. Even though people loved those acting jobs, they slowly locked in what people expected him to be as an actor. Many years later, when he was in The Waterboy, the part made that same picture stronger, making fans laugh while quietly showing Hollywood still saw him the same old way. That type of casting made a quiet but ongoing pull in Reed's work life. Outside movies, he was already seen as a real music creator, loved for his guitar playing, songwriting, and wide skills. On movie sets, though, those skills rarely turned into parts that pushed him to act in new ways. And while Reed never fought openly for different parts, it was clear acting was second to how the business saw him. His movie work brought attention and steady jobs, but it never reached the same creative or big level as his music. This left him respected and known, but stuck in a small box he could not change much. With money, Reed's path was like many singers who grew up before artists kept full control of their songs for a long time. Early on, money came and went unevenly, and royalty rules were not fair, so success did not always mean safe money. This made him stay busy and able to change even when his name meant something. The country music world, especially as it changed in the 1970s and 80s, loved new things and young faces a lot. So Reed had to keep changing his style, his team-ups, and how he showed himself to stay in the game in a world that never stopped moving. In the 1990s, that changing came as working together when Reed joined the Old Dogs with Waylon Jennings, Mel Tillis, and Bobby Bare. The group used their shared past and known names, giving Reed a way to connect with fans again while keeping the kind of stories and music that made his early days special. It was not a full new start like today, but it was a way to say again that what mattered was real skill, not following trends. Even as his health got worse, Reed did not pull back fully from making things, still writing, recording, and helping out wherever his body led him. People close to him said he stayed working in the recording studio as long as he could, doing it steadily until his body stopped helping. Not because he had to, but because making things was always how he lived. The slow loss of energy first cut shows short, then made travel hard, then made long work times tough. But Reed handled it quietly, showing less without saying it was the end. On September 1, 2008, Reed died in Nashville, Tennessee from problems caused by emphysema, ending a life that was more about keeping going than easy living. His death hit right away in both country music and movie groups. People talking about him focused less on chart numbers or ticket sales and more on how steady his work was and how he shaped things without taking over. And as people started thinking about Reed's lasting mark, one voice mattered a lot even before people looked back at their team. Burt Reynolds had shared private thoughts about Jerry Reed that showed a deeper, more tricky truth about the man fans thought they knew. This sharing would later make their famous friendship look completely different. Burt Reynolds breaks his silence on Jerry Reed. When Burt Reynolds talked in public about Jerry Reed later in his life, his words felt heavier than the fun stories fans were used to. By then, there was no movie to sell and no picture to keep up, only thinking shaped by time apart and loss. Reynolds always came back to the same idea when Reed's name came up. His talent was special and not by chance. He talked about Reed as someone who switched easily between music and acting, saying Reed got timing in a way no one could teach, and his natural feel made every scene they did better. Reynolds was very clear about how Reed helped make Smokey and the Bandit what it was, saying the movie's energy came not just Rom acting or action but from its sound and beat, which Reed helped create. He said many times that Eastbound and Down was not just extra music, but something that became part of the movie forever. Reynolds gave credit to Reed's real Southern feel and quick funny timing for keeping the movie steady, saying Reed brought a balance that let the laughs work without seeming pushed or too much. Beyond skills, Reynolds made it clear their friendship went way past just work help. He called Reed not just a movie partner, but a true friend, someone who loved the same jokes, stories, and country way of life. Someone whose time together felt normal, not planned. Reynolds stressed that what fans saw on screen was not fake spark, but a real friendship that continued when cameras were off, shaping how the movies got made and how scenes happened. According to Reynolds, Reed's being there gave the Smokey movies a relaxed and warm feeling that no one else could give. After Reed died in 2008, Reynolds' way of talking changed clearly when he mentioned him, and talks from that time showed a feeling he rarely let people see in public. He said Reed's death hit him hard, explaining their friendship went way past time on screen, and that losing Reed meant losing one of the few people in Hollywood he really trusted all the way. Reynolds called Reed a brother, a word he did not use lightly, showing how rare that deep trust was in a business where friendships often did not last. Reynolds also went back to the now well-known story of picking the cast, remembering how Reed first said no to Smokey and the Bandit because of time problems and how he answered right away. Reynolds repeated his own words with a smile and sure failing. "Well, I'll just drive to your house, throw you in the car, and take you to the set myself." He explained the push was because he believed Reed was the only one who could do Cleta Snowman Snow the right way. When thinking about Reed taking the Bandit part in Smokey and the Bandit Part 3, Reynolds talked about it with laughs instead of being upset, saying he respected Reed's nice way and readiness to keep the series going when he decided not to come back. Even though Reynolds stayed away from the third movie, he showed respect for Reed's fun way and his willingness to carry things on, coming to the same idea he said many times later. That Jerry Reed was not just part of his wins, but one of the few who really shared them with him. Reed himself also talked about Reynolds and shared what he had kept inside for years. Jerry Reed's confession about Reynolds. When Jerry Reed talked about Burt Reynolds, he showed how important Reynolds was to his movie path. Reed always talked about Reynolds as a true friend who opened doors when Hollywood did not want to on its own, and he never changed his mind that his acting work changed because Reynolds pushed for him when others waited. Reed said openly that getting the part in Smokey and the Bandit was not by chance or because the studio loved the idea, but because Reynolds kept insisting. He thanked Reynolds for seeing something in him that went past just being a fun extra or joke guy. And he knew that without that push, the part of Cleta Snowman Snow could have gone to someone else easily. In talks, Reed often smiled when remembering that time, speaking with a close feeling that showed thanks without making it too big and respect without acting, making it clear Reynolds' help was personal, not just business. One story Reed talked about most showed their friendship better than any big speech ever could. When Reynolds first called him about doing Smokey and the Bandit, Reed waited, saying he had time conflicts and other things that made it hard to say yes to the movie. Reynolds' answer, Reed said, was not talking or trying to change his mind in a normal way but strong pushing. Reed knew right then that Reynolds was serious. He wanted Reed in the movie so much that he would fix every problem himself, and that strong want meant a lot. Reed said yes to the movie, and what happened next became one of the most known friendships in popular movies of that time. A choice Reed later said changed how fans and studios saw him. Years later, when Reynolds said no to coming back for Smokey and the Bandit Part 3, Reed found himself in a surprise spot, taking the role that made Reynolds famous on screen. Instead of treating it with serious respect or waiting, Reed talked about it with the same fun, cheeky humor that was always part of what people liked about him, showing both excitement and surprise.